able to see one of the big screens or anything, you can actually tell from the opponent's body language as to whether they're on something or not. But that's not a good shot from John. He did much too thick. The cue ball was meant to retreat right onto the baulk cushion there. He just hit a lot of the red, too much.
The crowd knew that was in possibly before O'Sullivan did.
Yes, he's taking the pot on.
Definitely a different feel now about this session. Higgins led 3-0. O'Sullivan was clearly agitated, exasperated by losing the third frame as he did.
That's an excellent shot.
Definite signs, though, that the tide is turning a little here in favour of the 6 times champion.
Seven.
Oh, he's got reds out in open play.
Really tricky.
He's been going into the bunch without any great success so far. That option is open to him here. It's an attractive looking bunch of reds to screw right in the middle of and out again. Let's see how he gets on. Well, that's a delightful shot. Now that is, yes, the reds looked like they were going to break up nicely. So he had that in his favour, but he executed the shot perfectly.
15.
He's taking on the long red to the corner pocket.
I think you can just sense that things are levelling out in this match somewhat.
1.
I don't just mean by the possible score, which it could go after this frame, just generally. Sullivan now is looking better. I don't want to put the mockers on him, of course.
Yes, he's taking the pot on. Great shot.
He couldn't have played that any better.
The occasional sign of being indecisive on shots.
23.
And in some ways he has possibly slowed his game down. I mean, he's one of the quickest players, shot time on the tour, but I'm pretty sure he's a little slower in this championship. Some shots he's had to really think through, which of course brings the averages down.
Yeah, not the best split.
Shake of the head again from O'Sullivan. Yeah,
36.
Something close to 5 seconds per shot slower than he'd normally be in this match. Normally, as in for the season.
Yeah, the shake of the head was because he seems to have landed in the one place where nothing is easy to pot. It's hard to think of an area in the middle of the table on that left side where you're not on a ball. He's got a thin cut, and it's one of these that if he misses it again, it'll be a frustration. It's to do with going in.
This is very tricky, isn't it? Blind pocket.
31.
That's a really good shot from O'Sullivan.
It's amazing that he held it to there, though, as it was so thin. Yes, he had left-hand check side on when it hits the second cushion. The cue ball slows down. But the cue ball basically has gone nowhere.
Pace will be very important with this shot.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 6.
He's playing the pot here.
No question, though, that he's feeling more at ease out there now. He's enjoying the challenge of some of these 35. Awkward shots.
Yeah, and there's another one coming up here because these little pockets have been
nicely done.
Not giving much away,
6.
quite frankly.
36.
That's good. The last 2 shots in the middles, we haven't seen that from everybody this week. A few players have missed important shots in the middle pockets. But he sort of pumped the pair of them in.
Played it well.
12.
Decent position to take on a colour here.
13. 18.
And again, O'Sullivan almost forensic in the way in which he's going about his business this evening, spotting something he didn't like the look of on the brown,
19.
taking another time out. Happy to take much more time than he normally would,
left
just
that
to
a
make
little bit
sure
more
everything
tricky
is
than he
as he
would have
wants it
liked.
to be. He's talked at length throughout this
25.
championship
Challenging
about
pot on
staying
the
in the
cushion
moment,
here.
not getting ahead of yourself in a match, taking each
Great
frame
shot.
in isolation,
Running
each
with
shot
confidence
almost in
and on a bit of a
isolation,
roll at the moment.
and letting the scoreboard take care of itself.
Excellent shot.
And that's worked out
40.
very nicely, thank you. But when you start to cue, as O'Sullivan has done in the last 3 frames,
41.
you get those nice little flicks and rubs that perhaps he wasn't getting earlier.
So, this pot
Yeah, I don't
into
think I
the
would
right
begrudge him
corner.
that little nudge, because most of them have gone against him, I think.
That's an excellent pot.
He's letting the cue ball
Great
run
cue.
into areas which he's not in complete
34.
control of.
48.
And that time it worked out.
That's a great spread. He'll be unlucky if he's not anything here.
41.
So, this pot
49.
into the right corner.
Must admit I did it 3-1. Just check the sponsors' odds
top
for this
shot that
match, and they
is.
still had O'Sullivan at 6-4
He
on
seems full of
favourite,
confidence at the moment.
because they know full well that the matches have such a lengthy duration that
48.
it's not changing the world at
53.
3-1 Higgins. It's just bringing the odds a little closer together, I suppose.
49.
Long pot, right up his street. Oh, what a shot that is.
55. 54.
He's aiming to sink this into the right corner.
The 70 break before the interval, which
That's a great
gave
pot.
O'Sullivan
Oh,
something to
wonderful
build
shot.
on, was very well executed. Likewise,
55.
in the previous frame, the runs of 45 and 54. And this perhaps the most impressive to date. The way in which he's gone about this, some shots that were very missable, which he's overcome,
Just the red required.
62.
and now on the verge of drawing level.
And that effectively shuts out his opponent in this frame.
59. 63.
This is the genius of O'Sullivan. He can change the course of a match, of a session, and the entire vibe of the environment in the
It's
blink of an
really
eye.
tricky.
Suddenly, he's looking the stronger.
Oh, what a shot that
68.
A little
is.
frowning
What's
it.
that? Oh, thank you.
67.
That's fine.
Said something, I'm not sure what it was, but I think he couldn't believe he finished short.
69.
I think he thought that Marcel Eckhart thought he was addressing him. I think Ronnie was actually, in his own words, talking to the table there.
76.
This game can do things like that to you, you know.
This really has been a high-class break, hasn't it? Quite superbly engineered by O'Sullivan, and it's still going, and the crowd are loving it. They're willing him on. It's taken a while for Ronnie O'Sullivan, they know and love, to
Just the
spring to
colours to
life,
go.
but it's well and truly happening now.
Tremendous pot.
82.
And suddenly it's John Higgins with food for thought.
83.
93.
The balls are here in the back of the pocket with a lot of force. And
89.
as I say, that cue ball is not exactly dancing around.
Amazing
It's,
send.
91.
it's sort of his timing which is getting him through.
102.
I don't think he's particularly enjoying it out there, but he's
94.
found a sort of method. As I say, it reminds me of the
108.
Ronnie O'Sullivan
Does
that
it?
we used to see at the very beginning of his career, just Just hitting everything at extra pace just to get the cue ball to move. As you get older, you don't really want to do that, but
John Higgins.
That's the frame in the bag.
taking up a very different idea, and that's a terrific century.
His 8th of a tournament, and I doubt there's been a better one. This has been a Rubik's Cube of a break. O'Sullivan solved the puzzle in typically spectacular fashion. What panache he possesses. Magnificent stuff from O'Sullivan. He has burst into life here. From 3-0 behind, he ties it up at 3-all.
And just as commentary said, 3-0, the afterburners go on, Jim, it's 3 apiece, and all of a sudden we're seeing flashes of vintage Rocket.
Absolutely, he's just sort of sprung to life, you know. His shot time he's gone back to his normal. He just splits the pack there, lovely,
really
you know, the
close,
ball's
but
absolutely
not
lovely.
quite
Now,
close
he's in
enough.
trouble here. Only Ronnie O'Sullivan would play this brown to get on this red in the middle. It's a very difficult shot. And, you know, he goes on to make a century break, but the way he's done it, because I think the table is playing a bit heavy, and he's having to hit the balls a bit harder, but, you know, this is a fantastic double. You know, the crowd absolutely love this, and he puts another long blue, goes on to make a century, and the momentum is with Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Tricky pot coming up.
No, not quite. Pretty close though, but that won't provide any solace.
Game on at the Crucible. This increasingly engrossing session. Seeing quite a turnaround from 3-0 behind. Ronnie O'Sullivan back to his sublime best to level at 3-all. He's first back into the arena. John Higgins also having left and perhaps feeling just a little concerned by the burst of brilliance which his great class of '92 rival has been able to conjure there. And Higgins' early advantage evaporating in a thrice. 2 more frames to come tonight. Shades of the first round.
Really nice
Sullivan
opening
3-0 behind to Dave Gilbert. He ended up winning 6 on the bounce at the end of that first session. Closed it out 10-5. That was not quite as he intended to hit it, but not the worst result.
No, it's hard to get the cue ball sort of going that wide around the angles. Dangerously close to sort of going in off in the left corner, or then the cue ball coming back towards the reds.
Looking to play this with a lot of power.
Feeling a whole lot better about his snooker now.
That's a really good split, and this is a real opportunity.
7.
The cue for a response from Higgins, and that's worked out pretty well. It was a terrific red. Could easily have been out of position, but on the black.
Eight.
Also on the pink.
Pink ball. Sir, please.
More movement. Of course, this is a very different venue now. No more curtain, one table.
It's strange though, isn't it? I mean, I can't remember players being put off quite so much as I've seen tonight. I mean, you are allowed to move. It's just sometimes in the eye line of a player.
13.
I think back to Alex
8.
Higgins' era. There was all kinds going on in the audience when he was playing, and it didn't seem to put people off. Or if it did, they didn't used to say anything.
14.
$13. $14.
This will test his technique.
So, a little
He'll be
thinner on this than he would
disappointed with
like.
that.
Into the reds he can play. Got to be careful not to
19.
knock one in here. He's played it well. He deserves to be on one. I think he's all right. It was a good shot, that, from Higgins. He screwed him in and out of the bunch, fizzed cue ball into them. OK, went off the side cushion.
Not least because he'd barely troubled the scorers since leading 3-0. Just 18 points in the last 3 frames for Higgins. Great red to get in. And very wary, I'm sure, of the head of steam that O'Sullivan was beginning to build there.
$20.
He's played that very well.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 19.
Not really the result he was after.
Foul. Ronnie O'Sullivan, 7.
He's playing on from this position.
One.
26. $27.
Very tricky shot coming up.
Wow, what a great pot that was.
Superb cue ball control there. Ideal position.
8.
He's playing for the right corner here.
He's more than happy with the
33.
pink going on the black spot for the foreseeable.
$34.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 8.
If he underhits this, it could end badly.
O'Sullivan's onslaught checked by Higgins for now. He's got to be pretty happy, though, with the way in which he's responded to the frustrations of the
excellent
early
save
part
from
of this session.
Yeah, he's got to make a decision here, though. I mean, the obvious shot's to play on the bottom red, but he may not want to do that. 2 reds above it will pop, but the angle's not great to get on them. You've got to get the cue ball to
40.
really bite on that shot, to be straighter on the 2 reds than he is. So he's caused himself a little problem here. I mean, screws into the bunch of reds. You could see that happening, you know, from the shot before, the pink. He could have played on the bottom red. I understand why he didn't. As soon as he got awkward on those, he's got 2 things on his mind, the pot and the cue ball going into other reds.
Well, here's one of those rarities, according to the tournament stats. O'Sullivan having to cue from the cushion in this tournament.
at this red.
8 out of 9 in that regard.
What a pot.
Position looks pretty good to me.
1.
I'll be honest with you. I have to say this. And you're reading out the stats that are there. I don't believe them. Because how would that stat mean anything when you were put there from your opponent's shot anyway? I think it's meant to be a mark of his positional prowess, isn't it? And he's been on the cushion a few times, isn't he, tonight, I think?
He knocked in a great blue early on, didn't he, from the
not,
cushion?
Not buying into it. Sorry. I think the numbers have gone mad. Personally, how can he only been on the 8 times on the cushion?
Thank you. 8.
This is his 4th match. Well, that's what the numbers say. I agree with that. Don't think they're right. I tell you what, it would be more important than any of that, though, Philip, would be if he could take this frame, wouldn't it? Obviously, the black now underneath its own spot. It's not as good as it looks. Access to
9.
the black, and he hasn't freed the pink spot either there. That might have changed things. He might be able to free the black spot by moving the pink here, because he doesn't really want to keep on pulling the black from underneath its own spot next to the pink.
9.
Yeah, no problem.
And again, inviting Marcel to clean the cue ball. Yeah, whatever the truth about O'Sullivan's off-the-cushion cueing in this tournament, that was another good one, wasn't it? Always a test when you're somewhat hampered by the cushion with your cueing, dead straight on the red. And he stroked it in.
16.
Game transformed in the last 3 and a bit frames.
$16. $17.
He could have played that better.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 16.
$22.
Enough.
Foul.
His pot success
Ronnie
now
O'Sullivan,
on a par with
He's
what he's been
elected to play on
producing in
here.
the 3 rounds to get this far.
23.
At one stage it was down at about 87, 88%. It's now 94%, which means that in the last 3.5 frames it's been practically faultless, including that magnificent century just now, which was far from straightforward.
$30.
I guess you could trace the turning point in this session to date back to the blue that Higgins took on into the green pocket when he was 3-0 up.
taking it on.
And O'Sullivan was struggling
That's
and
just
feeling
magnificent.
cross about
31.
things.
Great positional shot.
Yeah, it was a tricky shot, wasn't it? And it was one, well, had he got it, he avoided the in-off in the middle, which was part of the shot, I felt. You know, he'd have probably won that frame as well. But as you say, I think you're right to mention that is potentially a turning point in things. They haven't quite turned yet, of course, but if O'Sullivan goes in front at the end of this frame, then they will have turned.
Nicely onto a red.
You go 3-0 down, your mind is wondering that you could be on the brink of a bad session, bad night of the office.
39.
But he's really knuckled down since then, I think, certainly in the last couple of frames.
Yes, we talk at length about what a devastating front runner O'Sullivan has been throughout his career, a real bully once he gets in front, but he's not too shabby from behind either, is he, as he's proving this evening. He was being put under a lot of pressure by John Higgins,
46.
who was turning the screw with his safety play, punishing O'Sullivan for any errors he made. And this has been a champion's response against his fellow great. Higgins now looking suitably pensive out there. I don't think he would have entertained thoughts of trailing at the end of this session after the way the first 3 frames went.
54.
Now, that's beginning to look like a possibility. Still work for O'Sullivan to do to clinch this frame.
Well, yeah, he might be able to lead if he can execute this shot
He's looking to
perfectly.
pop this into the left
Moving
corner
the red.
pocket.
Well, he certainly played it in that fashion, I think.
55.
Pushing first.
Impressive
Is he able to pop the blue here? He's muttering to himself under his breath. If he could have potted the blue and the red wasn't in the way, I'm sure he would have played it.
just this red
15
needed.
is the lead, which is very handy. But it's a very open table. He wouldn't want to do anything
There.
to hand the advantage
No real way
back
for his
to
opponent to
John
win the frame
Higgins.
now.
That frame was
15.
seemingly is pretty important. You know, we know it's a long match and all that, but I think it would be a shot in the arm if he got in front here.
Nicely done.
22.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, 55.
Well, again, he's done for by the table, the speed of it, and he hasn't snookered him.
Pace is very
He's a
important.
bit unlucky there, O'Sullivan, you know. Got the cannon, but landed on absolutely nothing. The red was the thing that got in the way of the blue ball being potable.
Looking to play this softly.
So we're back into tight frame
played that
territory again, and
very
this is
well.
where John Higgins has thrived this evening, winning the first three, which could have gone the other way. O'Sullivan will feel he's due one, but he's got to make it happen.
31.
He's very much on course for his fourth straight frame just now, before unluckily running out of position. Yeah, that was a good contact, although where's the red going to end up here? Not good for O'Sullivan. Chance for Higgins.
It's all about the red, isn't it? If this goes in, cue ball lands somewhere in the middle of the table, you feel that Higgins will be a very strong favourite to take the frame. There is distance between the two balls, which gives O'Sullivan hope, but the red is near the pocket. It just looks unnatural to land out on something.
And his long game's been in good shape this evening. 7 out of 9. That's excellent. This is a big one. Right in the middle. So another little twist in this first session, potentially. It was looking very likely that O'Sullivan was going to win 4 on the bounce, and was looking much the stronger player.
38.
Higgins with a golden chance here to stop him in his
6.
tracks and cause a little bit
He's
more
aiming to sink
frustration
this
in
into
his
the right
great rival.
No problem there.
8.
39.
He's playing for the right
11.
corner here. In it goes.
Both of these players are such superb scorers and break builders that you've got to think that the tight frames over the course of a 33 frame match are going to be
42.
absolutely instrumental to determine
15.
who comes through. And at the moment, barring something unforeseen here, it's going to be Higgins who's won all 4 of frames such as that. More than his fair share.
20.
Mark Selby, I think, lost 7 out of 8 tight ones against Yan Bingtao. That was very much the difference in that match.
Well, it goes. Half a chance here.
That's a big steal from John Higgins, and he needed it, frankly, because he was in danger of becoming a bit overrun by O'Sullivan, who was threatening to win 5 on the bounce, but he's been stopped in his tracks. Higgins in front again at 4-3. So another little twist, and you've got to say that O'Sullivan was out of luck again, just when he was building all of the momentum his way, but running out of position right at the back of that frame, and Higgins getting in with the long red and doing what Higgins does better than anyone else, clearing up from behind to win yet another tight frame. All 4 of that kind have gone Higgins' way, Neil. That's got to be significant.
Yeah, it has. I think it's safe to say that I don't think Ronnie O'Sullivan did very much wrong in that frame there. He was about to pinch it.
Ronnie O'Sullivan.
As I said at the time,
Frame conceded.
he cannoned the red out off the red. The red just got in the way of the blue when he cannoned it. The red he moved, it just went in front of the blue.
Here we go.
And as a
Final
consequence,
frame of this match.
you know, the frame became absolutely wide open again, although he looked a certainty to win it.
Third frame.
John stepped
John
in,
Higgins to
once the
red.
red went in, never felt he would miss. So, important frame for both players, especially John on this occasion.
Everyone in Sheffield, it feels, and of course well beyond the confines of this great city, have been looking forward to this battle.
Thank you,
And it is not disappointing, is it?
Not an easy one, but a half chance.
John Higgins back in front against the odds. Ronnie O'Sullivan threatening to make it 4 on the bounce, beginning to play some sublime snooker, but
Touching
that
ball.
run arrested by a combination of a bit of bad luck positionally, and Higgins showing his trademark cool to clear up to win his 4th tight frame of the evening. O'Sullivan having won his frames with decisive breaks. This the last of the session.
He really doesn't want to overhit this.
He's played that very well.
Foul and a miss. Ronnie O'Sullivan, 1. John Higgins, 4.
He'll be looking at the easiest escape route here.
Brilliantly played.
Well, he'd like to have a
Foul
dart
miss.
at maybe that right-hand
John
red, but
Higgins, 4.
can he get to centre-ball striking? I think just. This is a real test, though. Queuing test, especially with the brown just in his eye line. Oh, that's nice. That is nice queuing. Cue ball isn't exactly racing up the table, but I think he's got a slight angle.
He's taking the red on. What a top pot that was.
1.
Six.
Well, I'm not surprised he's taking on the long pot here.
3-0 down, and clearly frustrated by the way things were
Wonderful
going.
pot. Outstanding
O'Sullivan
effort.
would have been, I'm sure,
6.
highly delighted at 4 each. He might have had even greater ambitions just now before he ran out of position, allowing Higgins in to steal that 7th frame, but here's an early chance created by that beautiful bit of queuing just now
7.
to emerge with
I'm
a
not
share
sure
of
what
the
happened there.
spoils
That's a
going
poor
into
shot.
session 2 tomorrow
7.
afternoon.
Once again, you can see that in potting this black, it's not going to go anywhere near its spot. It'll go up on the brown.
The risk here is, where does the cue ball end up?
He's not happy at all,
14.
O'Sullivan. He didn't quite get to see the frustration. He's showing the ball's being responded, but he just
Ronnie
going through
O'Sullivan,
some kind of
7.
agonies out there. Yes, he's on the red and the black spot, but I think he believes to get up for something, you've really got to belt this.
15.
It's a beautiful shot. I mean, he's hit that so much harder than to have played that shot earlier in the week. He would not have had to hit it that hard. But he's adapting to what he's playing on.
I think in the 30 years he's been a pro, I can never recall a single time that O'Sullivan has complained about conditions. Yes, privately he would have thought to himself that was
Well,
a bit of an
he
iffy
lost control
table,
of the
but
cue
he's
ball
never
there.
publicly
Careless.
made a fuss about tables.
Foul. John
just got on
Higgins,
with it.
4.
Now, can he drop this into the right corner?
Maybe he might
Looking to
change
size
that
the game.
at the end of this session, as again he wraps the table.
I think he said good shot sarcastically. I don't think he believes he's played that well.
20.
I mean, he's playing with a lot of emotion, I think. I don't think it's a bad thing. There was a time when
Ronnie O'Sullivan.
any frustrations that he would have shown would have come out differently on the table to what they are now. He's highly competitive. It's been one of those evenings that he probably feels he should have got more out of it than he is. He might still be behind at the end of it. But at the moment, he's channeling that aggression in a,
corner here.
I think, a positive way, even when he's not playing that well.
Excellent pot.
He's playing very well here.
6.
It's worth saying that the table fitters do a tremendous job, and it's a very challenging one here at the Crucible because, of course, this is a theatre. It's not designed to be a snooker venue, never was. It's a wonderful snooker venue, but in terms of the logistics of making sure the table is dead level,
Loose play like that
it's not
isn't what
by
you'd
any
expect
means
from
a
player of his
straightforward
quality.
process, and inevitably at
O'Sullivan,
times you're going to have
6.
different
He's
types of
attempting to sink
conditions,
this into
heavy
the left
conditions.
corner
Sometimes
pocket.
the tables are lightning fast, sometimes there might be a little bit of deviation, but it's all part of the challenge.
1.
You would have hoped for a better split there.
John Higgins says good shot. No irony there. It was.
No, that's right.
This
It's,
is easier. Well played.
I mean, as I said earlier,
Made more
it's not
difficult
really
due to the rest being
the
used.
most conventional way of playing safe, but when you play side cushion first,
7.
sometimes it works out well. The cue ball invariably goes in a threatening area if you get the shot right.
9.
I think it is threatening because he doesn't quite know what to do.
10.
Tough shot coming up.
Oh, that's right out of the top drawer.
Excellent positional play there. Inch perfect.
Well, he's already thinking about other methods here, coming off cushions. He's got a shot at the red,
That split is not bad
and that's
at
the
all.
problem he might have in a
Great
couple of
opportunity.
misses if he misses twice.
14. John Higgins, 14.
Brilliantly played.
Well, it wasn't anything like what he played, basically. Yes, he's hit a red. But coming in from that angle, you know, he's either going to be put back if he wasn't on one, or he's going to leave one. He had no route back to Bog directly. That was the problem. This was the safety shot which made it all possible. And actually, the more you see it, this was a really well-played shot. Just covered all options as far as an escape route.
1.
He looks like he's trying to
All
get
the
the
more
cue ball
impressive given
tight
that
on the cushion here.
Sullivan had just rapped his knuckles on the table in annoyance that things had gone awry. So he was able to reset very effectively there.
This is developing
Get himself
into a
back in.
fascinating safety battle. Great shot. That's a really good safety.
There have been times in the
7.
past in O'Sullivan's career when the kind of things that have gone against him this evening would have perhaps been terminal to his chances in a match or a session. But he's so much more resilient these days. Such a teak-tough match player, as well as all the brilliance that we know about.
8.
Yes, he'll show his frustration, but he won't allow whatever he's feeling internally to overly affect the way he plays. And he has been challenged this evening. His patience has been tested. But he can still emerge with a share of the session.
13.
Which from 3-0 behind would be satisfactory from his point of view, I'm sure. Again, something on the red ball. I think O'Sullivan has asked balls to be clean more often tonight than he has in the rest of the season combined.
Well, it's true, isn't it? You're absolutely right. I haven't seen that before. He spotted something earlier on the brown ball. I mean, it didn't seem evident there's anything on it, quite frankly. But there's been spells where there's been kicks and he hasn't even had the cue ball cleaned over the years.
Yeah, that's true. There was a time when you barely
Ronnie
ever saw
O'Sullivan,
him ask for anything to be clean, regardless of a kick. And of course, he is one of those players who uses the old-fashioned chalk during this era where many of the top professionals have opted to go for the newer stuff, which has, if not eradicated kicks, then certainly dramatically reduced them.
20.
So the long red to the corner pocket. No, not this time.
It's another good pot, isn't it? Another good recovery pot from O'Sullivan.
Yeah, but also a good cannon. Couldn't have played it better.
And his pot success is getting better and better. It's now up to 95%. That's higher than his tournament average. And it's been even higher than that in this last few frames since he was 3-0 behind.
Could be a good red to get out of the way, this, because it might just make a difference when
27.
The pink goes back onto its own spot now, of course, although he's
taking it on.
Not remotely happy with that last shot.
No, not this time. Close, but a miss nonetheless.
But the cue will just disappear down the table too far.
Tough shot coming up.
Tell you what, if he misses one of these soon, there'll be another wrap on the table, I feel. He's a little frustrated. Well, mercifully, for all concerned, he hasn't missed.
33.
He won't be too happy with his position here.
4.
Still 83 on the table.
Yeah. 34.
Plain sailing, this session has not been for Ronnie O'Sullivan, but he is giving it everything in a bid to emerge unscathed. It's been fascinating stuff. The early frames were lengthy, both players taking much longer than they normally would. Bags of respect, lots of safety, but also some fabulous snooker as well. And again, O'Sullivan not happy, or maybe just wanting another little mental time out here as he composes himself and looks to clinch this 8th frame, and with it, parity going into session 2 tomorrow afternoon.
He's attempting to get the white tight on the cushion.
No, he's okay.
39.
It would have been really unlucky playing into that area and not finishing on a red with centre ball striking. He has done. Yes, it's looking awfully like it's going to end up all square. I don't suppose either player would be horrified by that in the grand scheme of these two playing each other. It's just they were both had frames they could have won and they've lost, and vice versa.
46.
I mean, I think it looks a pretty fair scoreline to me.
Been a very impressive response, I think, though, from O'Sullivan in particular, from losing those 3 tight frames. He needed one.
53.
John Higgins was threatening to get right on top in this session, but he's conjured a bit of magic on the other half of the interval. Could have been even better for him had he not lost position at the back end of the previous frame. Higgins clearly has played his part. He's been clinical as always
He fancies this red.
in potting the key balls in those early
So
frames,
close.
and indeed
He's
in the
missed it.
7th to
That
move
looked
back in
annoying.
front when it looked as though O'Sullivan was going to make it 4 on the bounce. But
59.
we're going to end up where we started, level pegging. And it is not disappointing, this battle of the ages between these two legends of the sport, contesting their 73rd match, their 6th here at the Crucible, their 2nd semi-final, with O'Sullivan chasing Stephen Hendry's Crucible record of 7 titles.
Into the right corner pocket.
He's already won more matches at the Crucible than anyone else. He's tied Steve Davis this year for appearances with 30.
Down it goes.
1.
And he's played more semi-finals here in this unique one-table setup than anyone else as well. The record number of World Championships, the only one to have eluded him so far.
74.
But for how long?
75.
Wonderful century in the 6th frame.
He'll want this to drop into the centre pocket.
Threatening to finish with another.
Tremendous pocket.
7.
82. 85. 89.
8.
Whatever challenges, whatever frustrations Ronnie O'Sullivan has been feeling this evening, he's managed to conquer them
He's lining this
to
up
set
into
this
the
semi-final
right
up
pocket.
perfectly for the 2nd instalment. There's his 2nd century of the night, his 9th of the tournament, to bring the house down at the close of session 1. Gripping stuff here at the Crucible. The crowd absolutely lapping it up. And when they come back tomorrow, it'll be honours even after a great night of snooker here in Sheffield. It's Ronnie O'Sullivan 4, John Higgins 4. 17 is the target over 3 days for a place in the World Final.
Well, it ended 4 frames apiece, but that really does not tell the story at all. It was 3-0 up for John Higgins, and in that mini session, over the next 5 frames, Ronnie then wins that 5 frames to 2, perfectly teeing up, or perfectly, or 4 frames to 1 actually, perfectly teeing up tomorrow's action. So as we see, we've got Mark Williams, Judd Trump. They're going to be playing twice, kicking off in the morning at 10 a.m. and then at 6:45. Our build up for that one will begin. And as for Ronnie and Judd, that's perfectly poised now. 2:30, we'll see them get back to the table once again. And this really is anybody's guess in terms of that draw there. And Jim, let's get into this a little bit, because 4 apiece. Ronnie not playing his best stuff, but still somehow manages to hit in 2 centuries. I mean, where's it coming from?
The table's playing heavy. You can tell by he's losing the cue ball quite a bit. But his determination, and because he's sharp, he's still like getting there, but he's having to overhit the shots. Out the 2 of them, Ronnie be feeling the better because Higgins was 3-0 up, so expect to get a lead. But you know, they'll both be pleased with the form because 4 each, they go again tomorrow.
It makes it for such an exciting match, this. I think at 3-0, we're sort of thinking to ourselves, is it going to be one-sided? And Ronnie just turns on the afterburners. He didn't seem happy with his tip. We saw him looking at that at the end there. He didn't necessarily seem happy with the table, but somehow he did manage to find form.
Absolutely, you know, he just battled through, and because he's such a great break builder, you know, his positional play was still there, but he had to overhit all the shots. John Higgins went for that blue that we showed in the mid-sesh. He sort of pushed the boat out a bit and give Ronnie O'Sullivan a chance, and he's took it. And you know, he had a chance really to have been 5-3 up, Ronnie O'Sullivan, but Higgins does what he does best, cleared the last red to the pink to go 4-3 in front. Ronnie's made a century, 4 each. You know, still anybody's game, but you feel that Ronnie's playing a little bit better than Higgins scoring-wise.
What's frightening, Jim, is he's actually playing a little bit better on pot percentage success, better than he has throughout the rest of this tournament. 95%, which is higher than his tournament average. The tournament, we've seen him play some fantastic stuff. There, flashes of it. So if I was John Higgins, I'd be thinking, oh dear, this is the man who's not playing the best, but still managing to do the business.
Yeah, but John, you know, John, at the start of the match, John Higgins sort of played it on his terms. O'Sullivan's shot time was like 26, 27. He played into sort of Higgins' hands in a way, and Higgins just picked him off. But Higgins is playing good. He's full of confidence. You know, he produced last night against Jack Lasowski the last 2 frames to win that match. He's just got up his scoring to stay with Ronnie, because out the two of them, Ronnie looks like he's the one who can win 2 or 3 frames on the trot.
That Ronnie win before the mid-session interval was an important frame to win. He then won the next frame after the mid-session, but he was let in with that long red from Higgins.
Yeah, we can see this. He hit this shot so thick, and he potted a couple in the first 3 frames. This is not a shot. It didn't really threaten the pocket, Razzie, to be honest with you. It was quite a distance away, and he left Ronnie in, and Ronnie went in to make a fantastic break. I like this shot. He's just starting to get comfortable around the table, switch his hands. You know, like that shot when you're sort of, you know, if he's 3-0 down, it's a bit more difficult playing with your other hand, but he played that well. And then all of a sudden he's in the groove at 3-2.
He's playing a lot quicker. You can see how he walks around the table with that positive body language. His arm loosened, and then we saw a century in frame 6.
Yeah, brilliant century as well, because, you know, he manoeuvred the cue ball round. The table is playing a bit slow. This is a great split into the pack. Opens all the reds perfect. You know, he's perfect on that red. This shot here for me was only Ronnie O'Sullivan would play that shot. He's seen that if he pots it, he's got the red in the middle. This red in the middle is really difficult, very tight angle. Gets this in, and then goes on to, you know, to win the frame again in one visit. Like, fantastic stuff.
So that makes it 3 frames apiece.